Welcome to our world. Hello. Thank you very much. Early October is the time when we traditionally honor teachers, educators, and mentors. Our meeting is taking place on the eve of Teachers' Day, and just the other day, on October 2nd, the country celebrated the Day of Workers of Secondary Vocational Education. And of course, first and foremost, I would like to congratulate everyone for whom these holidays are dear and meaningful. That includes teachers themselves, students, their families, parents, grandparents, everyone who fondly and lovingly remembers their teachers. In essence, this means the whole country. These professional holidays are close not only in terms of dates. Despite the obvious differences between various levels of education, they all form part of a unified educational space. Our shared task, which will also be addressed within the framework of the new national project Youth and Children, is to ensure that this space is truly unified and modern, meets the demands of the 21st century dynamics, and aligns with the development goals that our country as a whole is pursuing. This way, school children, college and university students, as well as those in vocational institutions, will receive the essential knowledge and skills they need, while being introduced to values that unite our society. This means they will be able to succeed in their professions, feel confident in life, and work for the benefit of the country and its citizens. A crucial role in this, of course, belongs to you and your colleagues, the educators. And I am delighted to greet today the bright, talented, and passionate teachers, educators, and mentors who are dedicated to their work. I want to congratulate you on the high recognition you have received in professional excellence competitions. Your ideas, accomplishments, and teaching styles are appreciated by your colleagues. That is the most important thing, it's the highest evaluation. This is very important both for you and for the people you work with, the young people, the teenagers. After all, education, teaching, and upbringing are always a creative collaboration between teacher and student. And innovative, strong methods like yours, of course, should be widely disseminated in the teaching community. I know that you are actively, as we regularly meet and have been doing so for years, exchanging experiences with colleagues, including during professional competitions. I expect that this work, with the support of the Ministry of Education and regional authorities, will continue to develop on a systematic basis, as will mechanisms for enhancing the professional skills of teachers. I know that there is a demand from teachers for closer interaction with major scientific and educational organizations and industries. Indeed, direct engagement with leading scientists, engineers, and professionals from other fields enriches the knowledge base of teachers and helps to better emphasize key points in teaching. I would ask the government to consider how best to structure such cooperation. I would also like to address your colleagues in Donbass and Novorossiya, and in the Kursk, Bryansk, and Belgorod regions. In very difficult circumstances, you are doing everything you can to ensure that children can continue their education. You demonstrate exceptional commitment to your professional duty and true courage. I want to thank you for your stance. Let me repeat, the educational space across the entire territory of our country is unified, and it is essential that it meets the highest standards everywhere, in all regions. This applies to the infrastructure as well, meaning the construction of new buildings, educational institutions, and the reconstruction and repair of existing ones, and, of course, the content of educational programs, the quality of teaching, and the conditions for the professional growth and development of educators. I think you are aware of, and see in your work, much that has already been accomplished. I hope you notice this, but, without a doubt, much remains to be done. I am confident that, as engaged and active individuals, you have your own ideas and suggestions that you are ready to share. Once again, I want to congratulate you on the holiday and on your well-deserved high achievements in professional competitions. Let's move on to our work and share the thoughts and ideas you have on this matter. Please, who would like to start? Rumbov, Ekaterina Vladimirovna, right? Yes. Please, go ahead. Good day, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Well, we all know and see very clearly that digitalization has become deeply integrated into our lives, at all levels from everyday life to the level of state governance, and that's a good thing. But as language and literature teachers, we are very concerned that such a large amount of digital content in the lives of our students has led to a significant decline in their level of speech culture. And speech is not only a tool for intellectual development. If we speak of speech as a form of culture, it is one of the most crucial foundations for preserving national identity. And I think this is exactly what Anna Andreevna Akhmatova was reflecting on when, during the Great Patriotic War, she wrote, "But we shall preserve you, Russian speech, great Russian word." Vladimir Vladimirovich, in our lessons, my colleagues and I, as language teachers, do everything we can to raise the level of speech culture among our students and the younger generation. But what measures can be taken at the state level to improve the speech culture of society as a whole? Thank you. You know, Ekaterina Vladimirovna, why don't you tell us what additional measures you think should be taken to ensure that our speech culture is at the highest level? It seems we need to propose a whole range of activities here. You mentioned that good speech is not only a sign of overall intellectual development, but it is still a sign. It is one of the serious, significant indicators of a person's intellectual development. And, of course, it is also linked to national identity. How could it not be? It's the native language, obviously connected to national identity. There is no brighter marker of national identity than mastery of one's native language. This requires a comprehensive approach. We need to foster the skills and love for reading and to discuss that literature. Of course, pressing buttons with a finger is also important. It's extremely important in today's world to be successful, for the country to be successful. We need to master these digital methods of gaining knowledge, exchanging knowledge, and achieving success in our professions. But speech culture is also incredibly important. Let's think together about what else we can do to ensure that young people have books in their hands, that they develop a love for books, and don't rely solely on the internet. Well, it's clear, we constantly talk about this, that whether it's a book, a newspaper, or whatever, paper is just a medium, just like any gadget. It's just a medium. The content is what matters. That's understood. But still, it's one thing to talk about music, and another to be able to listen to it and appreciate it. It's one thing to discuss, say, the paintings of Polinov and Levitin, and quite another to know how to contemplate, feel, and understand what the artist wanted to convey. The same goes for literature. Of course, everyone should know how to read. We need to cultivate a taste for books, the enjoyment of holding a book in one's hands, of reading deeply, not just gathering information, but immersing oneself in the nuances, in what the writer feels. Those feelings are hard to capture from gadgets. And this is important. It's important to know how to feel. That's why it requires a comprehensive approach. Yesterday, I met with the Minister of Education at one of the forums, and we touched on this topic. Please think about it. The government is trying, and a lot has already been done in this direction, but clearly more needs to be done, considering the trends in education that are developing both in our country and worldwide, trends that are noticeable and evident. Of course, we must take into account the conditions in which we live, with these gadgets, with the internet. How can we not? There's no avoiding it. But matters of a fundamental, essential nature should, of course, not escape our attention. I fully agree here. Let's think together about what more can be done. Please. Hello, dear Vladimir Vladimirovich. I am Yelena Nikolaevna Resnik, a primary school teacher at Gymnasium number 18 in the city of Leninsk-Kuznetsky, Kemerovo region. I would like to continue the conversation started by my colleague and share my experience. At our school, in the gymnasium, we have a reading club that brings together not only book lovers but also those who seek to expand their horizons of knowledge. It's not just about creative meetings with like-minded people, but also about poetry evenings and gatherings with local poets who share their experiences and inspiration. We also have family reading evenings, where not only children but also adults come together to learn how to discuss books and read the same books together. The club's activists, in collaboration with the city library, organize events and bring them into classrooms. After all, it's important for our children to be well read and to have good speech culture. That's why, in my suggestion, I would like to particularly emphasize the need for updating school libraries as spaces where the culture of communication between children and adults is shaped. Thank you. I completely agree with you, Yelena Nikolaevna. There's a saying that those who think clearly can express themselves clearly. This is only partially true, but of course, it's correct to some extent. One can be deeply immersed in their field and think clearly, but still lack the ability to convey those thoughts to others. That happens, too. Libraries, in this sense, should certainly be modern, well-equipped, but they must also be places for communication. That's for sure. They should be like clubs, where conditions for communication are created. In our newly built schools, by the way, we've already built about 1,400 schools, and over 400 more will be built by the end of the year. Not only is this planned, but it's already being done. In these schools, once construction is completed, libraries must not only be stocked with books but also staffed with specialists who know how to work with both people and books. This is, of course, the most important thing. Libraries across the country, especially school libraries, must be supported. We will definitely ensure that this happens. By the way, I would also ask the ministry to pay attention to this, especially during school renovations. Over 4,000 schools have already been renovated, and more are still in need of repairs. I have visited some of these renovated schools, and the standard is quite good, at least in the ones I've seen. Of course, they try to show me the best examples, but still, these schools look entirely different after renovations, just completely different. And if they didn't have libraries before, they need to have them now. I ask the minister to pay attention to this. But most importantly, we need to focus on librarians. These are very modest people, and their income levels are also modest, but they perform extremely important work, vitally important. Libraries need to be updated. We've seen what the situation is like in our so-called new territories LNR, DNR, Novorossiya, and Kherson region. I don't know, perhaps there are colleagues from these regions here in the hall. The situation there is dire, as far as I can tell. The previous authorities never paid attention to this, but we must, because it's undoubtedly a very important part of the educational process, especially for young people. It's also crucial for gaining essential additional knowledge in the areas a person chooses as their main focus when orienting themselves toward a future profession. This is extremely important for schools. I fully agree with you. Once again, I ask the minister to pay attention to this. Hello, Vladimir Vladimirovich. I am Nadezhda Sergeyevna Vorontsova, from the city of Forlog, a preschool teacher at kindergarten number 84. Vladimir Vladimirovich, my daughter is in the 7th grade at a general education school, and I learn a lot from her about school life, including about a subject called Conversations About Important Things. From what my daughter has said, and from the impressions of the teachers, as well as my own, after becoming acquainted with this program, I understand how important it is for children. At this point, it is truly one of the most significant, meaningful, and beloved initiatives for our children. However, wouldn't you agree that the upbringing of a future preschooler, a future citizen of our country, begins much earlier? In preschool, we already introduce children to basic values. By the age of 5, a child is already capable of understanding what it means to love their country and much more. This is our suggestion. We propose extending the Conversations About Important Things project to preschool institutions for children starting at the age of 5. After all, this would also serve as preparation for school, a kind of step towards, as is trendy to say now, a seamless transition. What do you think of this proposal? Nadezhda Sergeyevna, of course, what we've introduced in schools such as the flag, the anthem, and the Conversations About Important Things naturally complements socially significant subjects like history, social studies, and so on. It was very timely for us to implement this, and it has yielded good results. Because if we don't help young people orient themselves in this space, if we don't guide them through the endless stream of information, it becomes very difficult for them to navigate it on their own. Very difficult. Unfortunately, we've talked about this a lot in the past, but now the work is being structured. For instance, in school textbooks, they used to talk about anything regarding the times of World War II, yet almost never mentioned the Battle of Stalingrad. This is strange, you see, just unbelievable. We now know, based on the latest data, that we lost 27 million people during World War II, during the Great Patriotic War. Countries like Great Britain, for instance, lost around 350,000 or 400,000. The entire Wehrmacht was concentrated on the Eastern Front, about 80% of it, in fact. Yet, for some reason, the Battle of Stalingrad was mentioned only in passing in our textbooks. Of course, such a lack of orientation in the information space leads to certain consequences. Naturally, if we forget our roots, we will never have a future. I get the impression that someone was deliberately trying to raise our younger generation in such a way. Conversations about important things is a serious start to a significant effort. The key here is to avoid overdoing anything. Nothing should be overdone. Everything must be balanced. First, everything should be sincere, objective, and clear. We have expressions for this. You mentioned them, and I made a note. Absorbed with mother's milk or learned at a young age. These expressions highlight the fact that, from an early age, we need to instill certain fundamental values in children. But, again, everything must be within reason. Of course, it is important to consult with specialists, with child psychologists. We need to understand what a child is like at 3, 4, or 5 years old. Some 5-year-olds might say, "I want to be a soldier and play with a toy gun," while others may behave differently. But they are still children. You understand, they are at a certain stage of development, and we need to work with them based on that level of development. These are delicate matters. And undoubtedly, you know, I've been involved in combat sports my whole life. And we used to say, the younger the child, the more experienced the coach should be. That's exactly right. It's a delicate thing. Many of you have children of your own. So you know how small children behave. Everything must be aligned with their level of development, and everything should serve the child's interests. But what I mentioned about the expressions like absorbed with mother's milk points to the fact that basic values, fundamental things, are accessible even to young children. And we must carefully introduce these concepts to the youngest children, connecting the idea of homeland and country with their mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, brother, or sister, whether older or younger. It should be done very carefully. Of course, this is the right and necessary work. I fully support you. Thank you for bringing this up, Nadezhda Sergeyevna. Good afternoon, Vladimir Vladimirovich. I am Alexey Vitalyevich Makhnovetsky, director of the first school named after Sergei Sergeyevich Alexeyev in Ekaterinburg. Today, there are quite a few educational initiatives, projects, festivals, and forums for teachers. We are gathered here today around the Teacher of the Year, First Teacher, and Educator of the Year contests. We've also heard a lot about educational projects from the MASH UK Knowledge Centre, including the training of advisors for directors on upbringing. However, we, the directors, also need such education, and sometimes perhaps even more than the teachers themselves. Currently, we have the Federal Contest Director of the Year, where we can realize some of this, but we still want to stay updated on the state agenda and acquire the critical competencies that are most in demand in the education system today. In light of this, I have a question. Is it possible to create an educational project or space for communication specifically designed for directors and their deputies? We really need this. Thank you. Of course, it is both possible and necessary, especially since you feel there is a lack of it. I completely agree that it needs to be done. A director is a person responsible for a team, and they shape the entire life of the school. How they perform their role largely determines the moral and ethical atmosphere within the staff, the teachers, the educators, and that, without a doubt, is passed on to the students. This is absolutely certain. So, it is necessary to improve and enhance managerial skills, communication with people, and team management skills. Of course, this needs to be done. If there is a lack of this, the minister is listening to us, he's sitting there with you, and I ask you to pay attention to this. The larger the team, the greater the responsibility, and of course, people need more opportunities to improve their professional skills, knowledge, and qualities. I fully agree with this. I don't know what exactly can be done right away. To be honest, I can't give an immediate answer. Apart from the retraining of teachers, conditions must also be created for those involved in administrative work to improve their professional skills. Sergei Sergeyevich, what do you think about this? Dear Vladimir Vladimirovich, we completely agree. And next year, we have planned a large forum for school directors, specifically to discuss with colleagues both professional development and work, because there have been many innovations, unified educational space, upbringing. Of course, directors should be our allies in this. We will certainly invite you too, colleagues, to discuss the further development together. Thank you. How should we, as leaders, proceed? Clarity is needed here. Sergei Sergeyevich, please pay attention to this. Vladimir Vladimirovich, hello. My name is Kristina Sergeyevna Manukova, and I am a teacher at Gymnasium number 3 in the city of Astrakhan, which, by the way, you visited back in 2007. I am proud to represent this region, despite the fact that I am originally from the Leningrad region. I studied in St. Petersburg, but fate led me to marry an officer of the Russian army, and I followed him to conquer our Astrakhan steppes. I worked in rural schools for 13 years, served as deputy principal for educational activities, and when I learned about the Navigator of Childhood project, I realized that this is where I wanted to develop myself. This project is aimed at working with children, being closer to them, and moving away from paperwork. Now, I work at a gymnasium in Astrakhan, and I am glad that there are more and more competitions for teachers. There are contests and projects where we can express ourselves, showcase our work, share experiences, and, ultimately, gain new knowledge. These include contests and platforms like Russia Land of Opportunities. It's a wonderful initiative, and I want to thank you very much for it. I am especially grateful because I was a finalist in this year's Great Topic Contest. Such a competition, of course, needs to exist. And you know, we had a Counselor of the Year competition start in Astrakhan last year. I know that similar competitions exist in other cities, both at the regional and municipal levels, but we don't yet have a professional mastery contest for counselors on a national scale. But believe me, we already have a lot to share, and we have plenty to showcase from our work in various children's organizations. We are creating media centers, developing theater studios, and sports clubs. There's also the Eaglets of Russia program. We really do have something to show. Vladimir Vladimirovich, what do you think about the idea of creating a contest for counselors, or at least adding a track within, for example, the Teacher of the Year contest? Firstly, I'm very pleased that you mentioned the Great Topic Show, which indeed came to mind as an idea during one of these meetings in previous years. It's very gratifying that it's being implemented and that professionals in your field find it appealing. I think it's a very useful initiative, this show. As for the competition for counselors, I fully support it, absolutely, just as I support the creation of some kind of platform for administrative staff, school directors, deputy directors, and so on. A contest for counselors on upbringing is an extremely important initiative. After all, we didn't just introduce the position of counselor on upbringing without reason. It's an incredibly important role. If you think about it, in almost every question we've heard today, this topic has been touched upon, starting from preschoolers. But I won't go into detail right now, as we have a very well-prepared audience here, and we all understand what education is. So, of course, everything must be improved, and naturally, we need to exchange information with each other. It's essential to receive additional knowledge and have the ability to effectively use both the information we already have and the information that comes in. In today's world, it's extremely important to stay at the cutting edge of opportunities and to know how to take advantage of them. Therefore, I fully support this. I think we can create a separate nomination within the Teacher of the Year competition for this, at least as a start. Then we can see how it develops. Sergey Sergeyevich, do you support us? Yes, we're working on it. Do you support us, Sergey Sergeyevich? Yes, we support this. Thank you. Please, let's continue. Is there anyone else? Is that all? Hello, Vladimir Vladimirovich. My name is Alexander Sergeyevich Kondakov, and I am a history and social studies teacher at the Cadet Cossack classes of Kondratovskaya School, Perm Krai. I'd like to talk about the interaction between families and schools. All teachers, homeroom teachers, and subject teachers work with families, primarily with parents. And here we have a bit of a challenge, to put it that way. When I first started working, I was very afraid of interacting with parents because I didn't know much about the methods. It was quite intimidating to engage with them. Every meeting and every parent-teacher conference was a test for me. Now, of course, I've gained experience, and it no longer feels so daunting. But the issue remains. I know that today future teachers are already being trained in new and effective methods of interaction with parents during their studies. But what if we consider organizing courses for teachers who are already working in schools? In these courses, teachers could learn about the most up-to-date and effective ways to work with parents. Thank you. You know, Alexander Sergeyevich, since you've raised this issue, it means it's relevant and needs to be addressed. And yes, we probably should do that. After all, both the educational and upbringing processes can't be effectively organized without cooperation between the family and the school. Do you remember how Vygotsky sang, "What do family and school teach us?" Why family and school? Not by chance, because only together can we achieve the desired result. Of course, the foundational values come from the family, they are instilled at home, but families' parents too can be influenced by a specialist, a teacher, a mentor. Just as a teacher should receive information about the environment in which the child is being raised, how they live, and how they are communicated with. Maybe the teacher can even help the parents, guide them in establishing the right relationship with the child to achieve the best results in both the upbringing process and the acquisition of the necessary knowledge for the child. So, since you've brought this up, I understand. I won't hide that before meetings with you, they also read various special notes about what's happening in this area. I just read that our universities already have an entire course dedicated to interacting with families and parents. This is a very important area of work, extremely important. So, of course, if there are refresher courses for subject teachers, this also holds great significance. Therefore, I support you, and Sergei Sergeyevich hears us. Let's do it that way. I agree with you. Once again, I want to congratulate you on the results of the competition, and I want to congratulate you on the choice you've made in life. This is the most important thing, in the end. I'm sure there could have been many more people here who could have been winners as well. We don't have that many competitions, but in various specializations and areas of activity, of course, there are many talented people in the teaching field, in the educational field. But at one point, you made the decision to become a teacher, an educator, a mentor. This is a noble choice and a very important one for the country and society. It's important because this profession attracts people who care, who make this choice based on their calling. This is an extremely important thing. If we love what we do, we will inevitably be successful. And I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, want to wish you that. Congratulations on the upcoming holiday, wishing you all the best, to you, your students, and your mints. Congratulations on the upcoming Teachers' Day. Thank you for joining us on our world. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe.